Our co-founder and Chief Learning Officer, Sridhar Rajagopalan, is the heart and soul behind our solutions. And our CEO, Pranav Kothari, is the brain behind scaling these solutions to the farthest corners of the country. Would it be correct if I say that Sridhar, you focus on the learning with understanding part of the mission, and Pranav, you take care of children everywhere part of it?
So it's an interesting way of looking at it. I don't think that we have consciously divided or thought of it that way. But it is true that I am extremely passionate about the education part of it, the products part of it. We did run a school for 6 years before we started EI, and that's where we kind of saw the problems on the ground. So yes, I naturally kind of think about how is this going to work for children, and I'm also passionate about the product and the technology part of it. And yes, I think naturally Pranav automatically looks at scale and actually getting it out there.
Well, I've learned a lot under Sridhar. I've worked with him for more than 12 years now. I think his constant question is, will this innovation, will this product, will this research actually move the needle on student learning? And that inspires me to take this to as many students as possible. So I'm always sort of nudging Sridhar that, can our students learn 10 times more than a control group when they use EI products and solutions? And Sridhar's always asking, which countries are we expanding into? How do we get into more government schools? How do we reach 10 million students as fast as possible?
How have you ensured that it is at its forefront of education transformation and leading the change in the sector?
No, so there are two parts to this. The reason we kind of, even before EI got into education, was the realization that we can do many other things. Society needs many things, but it is only education that can literally move individuals, families, and even the country to the next orbit. What I mean by that is that whether it is poverty or health, we can solve these problems, but education is the one thing. And if we look at it individually or our families, we will find that someone, one or two generations back, kind of studied, completed college, and so on, and that's happening even today. So we realized that education is the one that can be the game changer, and that was the reason to get into education. We realized that the problem of rote learning, the fact that children are not really learning and they're kind of going through the motions of learning, and parents, teachers, society, board exams kind of watch this, but this is not what is going to work for the future. Initially, we thought that setting up schools would solve this problem, and that's why we were doing that. But we realized that this is very deeply entrenched, and so we need to work at two levels. We need to have teachers in schools at the ground level understanding what we mean by rote learning, what true understanding is, but also push for systemic change, whether it's board exams changing or the way we assess changing. So I think that was, I would call, an aha moment when we realized that children are not really learning, we are going through the motions. And I think that was the point where we said something like this, which has us checking whether children are learning, showing this to teachers and parents, and trying to get them there. And if you ask, how have we done this over the last 2 decades, I think it's actually very simple. I think when the problem is solved, when we can feel happy about our education system, we would feel, we've done something. And since that is not there yet, it just kind of keeps us going.
How is EI solution enabling students to achieve all of it?
Ultimately, we want to move the needle on students learning with understanding and mastery of concepts in English, math, science, social studies, and 21st century skills like computational thinking. We think this can be done by two levers, right? One is, can you ask high quality questions, whether it's unit tests, summative assessments, formative assessments, board exams, any kind of assessments. If the quality of the questions check for understanding, the energy in the system will sort of move towards it. It's sad to say that, even when Sridhar started this 25 years ago and started the school, and the learning levels in India have not increased in the last 25 years as measured by multiple assessments done by us, done by some of the others. So if we ask better questions in the high stakes exams, then the energy in the system of preparing for a test will be channelized towards a useful goal for India to sort of do more innovation and things of that nature. Today, at any class, whether it's a high-fee private school where there are only 20 students, or it's a large classroom of 100 students in urban neighborhoods and low income, one challenge that is common is that the teacher is facing a classroom full of, students who have very different learning styles, learning levels, learning speeds. They come from very different backgrounds. But we've seen that even in villages where the socio-economic background is the same, students have very different learning trajectories. Even twins have very different learning styles. So we make an adaptive learning software that assesses the child's current knowledge state and helps them learn forward. They can do this anytime, anywhere, but we have mandated that at least an hour per child, per subject, per week is inside the school with the school teacher, with the subject teacher. So what we are trying to do is help a teacher achieve their intent of enabling every child to learn well, with the software actually providing the individual tutoring, the individual support, giving this data back to the teacher, so the teacher's lesson plan for the next day is focusing on those concepts that majority of the students have not understood. So by making high quality assessments, giving diagnostic reports to teachers, they have a better understanding of their classroom, and by providing a computer-based adaptive learning solution, we're able to amplify what the teacher wants to do but doesn't have the time and energy to do it.
How are we bringing about this balance and also maintaining a sustainable business model?
Well, I feel like people should pay for the quality of the service that they are receiving. So in high-fee private schools where parents are able to pay fees to the school pays us a fair price for our products on a per child per year basis, and that provides a revenue model for us. I completely understand that students who are going to government schools may not have the ability to pay, their parents might be too poor. So for them, we actually raise philanthropy money. This comes from corporate CSR partners, it comes from international aid, it comes from a variety of different high net worth individuals who are supporting the education of the child. By doing this, we're enabling that both sides of EI's stakeholders and students continue to get this year over year, and that we don't sort of do a start-stop program on that.
When Pranav says high quality questions, how do you build high quality questions? Education has been seen as a social philanthropic ventures, right? So teachers, schools, principals are good-hearted people who are working for the benefit of the larger community. This is the normal kind of perception. Now this is true, but there is the need for science, the need for systematically analyzing patterns, for the science of how children learn is, I think, something that we have talked about and has been the core of what EI does. And I think this is not realized so much. Even today, you have a lot of products where the people who are developing products say, we understand the technology and then there is a school system and then we just work with what they have. But we think that even researching that school system and how children learn and how textbooks should be and how questions should be is something that is very, very critical. And so you kind of bring in the science perspective, some people call it the learning engineering perspective, and then you are able to scientifically diagnose misconceptions. The difference today versus 20-30 years back is data. So without data you probably could not do this, but with data, if we do not do it, we will not be doing the best for our children. So I think that's the other thing that EI products bring in kind of reaching this mission.
Yeah, and what we have done is taken the science of learning, converted into simple to use misconception posters for teachers. We have donated a lot of this research on Diksha, which is a free Creative Commons open source access for school teachers, principals, students to access some of our work. Our intention is, our dream is that India is in the top quartile of a test like PISA, and we're doing all the different elements necessary to get there.
The social philanthropic venture, is it Ei Shiksha you're talking about?
So yes, Ei Shiksha, so one of the things, in fact, even in the EI vision statement, we say children everywhere learning with understanding. And we emphasize that everywhere does refer to geographic. So when we are contacted by Bhutan or South Africa or the US or India, we will go, and we will work wherever people want to work. But probably an even more important sense in which we mean everywhere is that there are people out there who value education, who have the resources and who will anyway reach out and get the best for their children. But there are also people, and Pranav also referred to them, who do not have these resources, who may not even understand, who may themselves be illiterate. And in fact, reaching them is more difficult because they are in places where, forget the internet, but roads kind of are, it's difficult to reach through roads. So it's very, very important for EI that we should be working with them. and
Yeah.
that is the
Right.
Ei Shiksha division. And the work they do is very close to my heart. It's also very close to Pranav's heart. He headed that division for so many years. So in some ways we find that these two are very complementary. So the research we do with the private schools, the top schools pushing us, to do better. At the same time, us seeing and trying to tackle the challenges that we see in the Shiksha schools, whether it's the rural or the municipal schools in cities, I think they kind of both reinforce each other.
A good education system would level the playing field for all students. Today, there's a high correlation between your learning levels and your parents' income. At EI, what we endeavor to do is make the same high quality products available to all students regardless of what the family makes. It's contextualized, of course, to a language of comfort for them with the bridge towards learning English as a second language. We've provided the different motivation aspects depending on what the audience needs. The technology backbone is the same, the pedagogy is sort of sound, and so by doing this, Ei Shiksha is our way of enabling students at any part of the world, regardless of a conflict setting that they are in or a poverty setting that they are in, to be able to access the same quality of learning that they are, brothers and sisters in Mumbai, Dubai, and Johannesburg are getting.
So in that case, how is Ei Shiksha creating a unique position for itself?
There is a multi-dimensional, multi-stakeholder problem to be solved. You have to solve for income, for health, for the various aspects of a student's life. What we are focusing in the education sector is, can the child get access to high quality, learning software that they can use anytime, anywhere, on a Sunday when the school is closed, during COVID from home? Can they sort of do this in the school computer lab because they don't have a device at home? Can they access it on a smartphone which costs less than 5,000 rupees that their parent might lend to them for half an hour? Can they do this on a laptop that's installed in the schools? Regardless of the hardware, regardless of the internet availability, regardless of device ownership, can every child sort of access an hour of learning which is completely custom tailored and personalized to them and helps them put them on the learning path. That way we are unlocking the motivation that exists. We find that there are gifted students in all parts of India, right? Even in very poor settings. They need to get this access to be able to get to their full potential. And so what we're doing is we're partnering with many non-profits who already have the Last Mile Connect. They know how the panchayat works. They have done capacity building programs with teachers. They have signed MOUs with government. They're doing what they're doing. What Mindspark does is it turbocharges their theory of change. So if they were only focusing on the remedial students, or they were only focusing on headmaster leadership, what we are able to do is do independent third-party assessments for them, and we're also able to provide a computer-based software that generates data at every child's learning unit level and flows it back to their central pedagogy teams. And that's sort of our unique add-on complementary solution to all the non-profits that are working on the ground. We've done this with Nandi, with Magic Pass, with Neo Rajkot, and many other non-profits that we are partnering with.
There is a very strong, especially in EI's work, a very strong complementarity with the rest of the system. So in fact, there is no, if you look at an organization and you would say, oh, these people are doing the same thing, it's actually not that. I mean, we are just looking at what their strengths are, and our offering is a learning product which uses technology with a lot of educational research behind it. And then they have the reach, they are often reaching out to teachers, and they just use this as a tool, and we support them in that process. So I think it's a very, very strong complementarity that we see with almost any partner. And I think we are very strongly committed, all of us, that the goal is this, and how are we working towards that goal together.
Where do you see EI in the next 5 years?
AI is today a big thing, all around, but AI has been looking at it for a long time. It's not that this was very new, but AI has turbocharged our work in the sense that in many, both in our math and our language products, which are our longest products, we have had ways of which saying that, a teacher cannot do this with every child. So how can the system support that child? Whether it is in learning algebra, whether it is in correcting the mistakes when a child writes a sentence in English and so on. And we used to write fairly complex code to do this. And so AI is one thing that I think is going to be big in at least the coming 5 years, which is that now already we are finding, in fact, we have released products features where now AI is able to provide that correction in the error the child made, and it is like far better than what we were doing through the coding. So AI is one example.
On AI quickly, so AI by itself, if left unhindered, can also cause a lot of harm. Children can access unwanted content, they can ask questions. But then you put on guardrails, let's say like Khan Academy did, and then you're only getting to watch educational videos. So what we've done with AI is we have put guardrails where students are able to submit a sentence they wrote or a paragraph and get customized feedback with empathy to the student on what they can make it better, how a revised version of the sentence might look like, encouragement for them to write again. Similarly, we have found that the propensity to read goes up when students feel they had an agency in creating a story. So we have actually created a story creator where students get to pick the grade that they're in, characters of the story, name the character, how kind of a surprise, happy or sad ending do they want? Do they want it as a poem, third party, or even a screenplay? And when they are able to do this, they want to read the story because they felt, oh, I put Ellie the elephant in there, in a spaceship. And then there are reading comprehension questions based on the story itself. And this is important because a very important 21st century skill is that students are able to pick an unseen passage, read it with understanding, and answer questions based on comprehension of the passage.
The second thing that I want to talk about was actually 21st century skills. So that is the other thing, and computational thinking, data analytics, collaborative problem solving. So computational thinking is something we've already launched in our assessment and are going to be launching it in the MindSpark version in a little while. The others I mentioned, data analytics, collaborative problem solving, are also things that are being researched in AI today. So that's the second big change that we see. But beyond this, the part that we really want to focus on the next few years is literally kind of getting closer to understanding learning, understanding teachers, and taking the same core offerings of AI, which is assessments that gives teachers feedback, learning that is personalized and adaptive and helps children, add subjects, but kind of just increase the effectiveness on the one hand and the scale and the impact, taking it to more languages. Today we offer it in 10 languages, including English. Expand the number of languages, expand the reach. So the same solution is now available to more and more students.
Yeah, I would agree that, coding is a very important 21st century skill, but that's usually after college, during the workplace. And so if you parse down, what ultimately helps you get there would be the computational thinking, the ability to recognize patterns, create algorithms, and that is being infused as a sixth subject in our product offering, both in Asset and we're now building this for MindSpark as well. What we have seen over the last 2 decades, what works is that when technology is adaptive, and so we will use more AI and machine learning algorithms to be able to make this adapt to where a child's current knowledge state is between what they know and what they need to know next. We've also found that one of the unique differentiators is the pedagogy research that we have done. So we now have the largest team ever in the history of EI in terms of working on product, content, and technology to uncover this pedagogy research and infuse it into our program. And finally, I think data is going to play a big role in determining how all of this is optimized. So because we're able to capture every student's, every sort of questions, response, the time they took, how much time it took for them to master a concept, and how can we make it faster? How can they learn deeper and faster, both at the same time? And we're probably the only software that has had 5 different independent third-party evaluations. So we continue to remain open for other researchers to come and analyze our product in action, give us feedback to make it better. Over the next 5 years, to get to a world where children are learning with understanding everywhere, we'll make more partnerships, more pedagogy research, take the best of technology that adds to the goal of improving learning outcomes, and make this available to more students. Given some of this software economies of scale, we hope to provide this at even more affordable prices than we currently do today.
So Pranav, you mentioned about the projects and the partnership with several organizations. Do you think this would be enough for you to move the needle on a larger scale?
So we've partnered with many non-profit organizations who are doing work on the ground, and we intend to do more. So we're looking forward to more people reaching out to us and us collaborating to do this. One of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, SDG number 17, says partnerships for the goal. So that's one huge topic of personal interest to me, and I invite many people. I think the second way to do this would be to work with the governments who are sort of working with about 2/3 of India's school children.
Literally from the day EI started, we realized that it's easy to say that we want to work with every child and work with the children who are left behind, but we cannot do this unless we work with government. And sometimes when people don't work with government, they have apprehensions and concerns and things that, okay, it's very difficult to work with government. Fortunately, in EI's DNA, literally from day one, our second or third project was when we partnered with agencies like UNICEF, but that means working with a government, a state. And so across the years, we worked closely with many state governments. We've also worked with certain national governments in countries like Bhutan and Maldives and so on. I think it was a very happy occasion for us a few years back when CBSE and ICSE and other boards gave us an opportunity to work with them, thanks to the suggestions in the National Education Policy, in the NEP, that board exams and assessments should change. We have been working with them to kind of build their capacity and strengthen them. Also with many states, both on board exam reform as well as assessment reforms, which is what affects the lower classes as well. So we feel that it is when we work with government that we kind of really spread this expertise to the larger population. We've been very committed that expertise that we have is not for us to kind of hold, but for us to train anyone who is serious, but especially government, so that the capacity of the system as a whole increases. So again, it's a key part of Shiksha and a key part of what I think is going to help us achieve this goal of reaching all the children all over the world.
There is enough money that is already being spent. On average, the government is spending 15,000 rupees per child per year. You can argue it's more, you can argue it's less, but the point is, how can that be more efficient, right? Can the quality of the spend be directed more towards learning than towards things that have been proven to not improve learning outcomes? In that regard, the improvements in questions on the board exams, our work with CBSE, ICSE, the 4 state governments, is a very, very low spend per child and a very high return on investment for the government to get students to sort of learn on skills that will make them more employable in the future. To provide a high quality computer-based adaptive learning software costs no more than 1,000 rupees per child per year at large scale when a government does it, and that's less than 6% of the annual operating budget. So it is very much possible to do this. We've done this at the scale of about 5 lakh students who are learning every day on Mindspark. They come from 7,000 different government schools. So I think our role is to do the innovation, to create a blueprint, and then work with the government, collaborate with them to expand this to the 300 million students who study in 1.5 million schools, and enable the 9 million teachers to be able to be much more effective so that each and every student reaches their destination.
Today in India, there are a lot of things happening. The digital aspect is kind of visible. But even thanks to partnerships and the government's own initiative, for example, foundational learning, the fact that every child must learn to read and do basic numeracy skills well, has become a national focus. We've moved very quickly on that. Board exam reform, digitization, digitization including in education, initiatives like India. So all of this are very much in line with EI's own focus of kind of using scientific approaches, but trying to use advanced science and technology to reach the most backward and the most needy. So, for anyone else who's interested in these kind of things, remember that there is a lot of dynamism, there's a lot of action happening in this space too, and I think we will together achieve those goals that we are trying to reach.
And Sridhar, one of the places where we've seen this more closely is the United Arab Emirates, where we've seen that the government also there, the country stood more than 50th rank on PISA, but then the government decided that every child should get a third-party assessment every year. Schools' fees increases and enrollment was actually linked to year-on-year improvement in student learning outcomes. And those are some case studies which India can learn from in that regard.
Yes, I mean, in the UAE and Dubai led it, and now all the UAE Emirates more or less are doing it, which is they actually partnered with external assessments. So ASSET, for example, is a test that is done by virtually all the Indian schools there, and it is required that every school takes such an assessment. So these are good steps that have shown results. So like Pranav mentioned, the actual rank on international performance, even the feedback. We've also done a qualitative study where we've spoken to schools, and these are CBSE schools or ICSE schools. So this impact or the focus on learning, on having external assessments has really moved the needle in terms of what is possible. And we're trying to bring in some of those ideas to India, and I think that's a very good point too.
To create a space where children everywhere are learning with understanding, and also create the kind of impact that we need to have on our children and also in the sector of education. So thank you, Sridhar. Thank you, Pranav. It was great and lovely having a chat with you.